Nobody ever said adult cartoons had to be ugly. Just look at the comic book flair of the Venture Brothers, or the anime style of the Boondocks, or the collage of styles in Smiling Friends, or the cute and edgy designs of the Has-Been Hotel characters. Yet for some reason, most adult cartoons vary from flat and bland to a hideous dumpster fire. I previously redesigned some ugly children's cartoons to make them look more appealing, so I thought, why not try the same thing with adult cartoons? Superjail is about the most dangerous and nonsensical extra-dimensional prison in which inmates maim and kill each other and are maimed and killed in absurd ways. It's run by a cheerful warden who's completely apathetic to the carnage that his superjail creates. There are no lessons, there are no rules, it's just madness. When I set out to watch this show for my redesign, I was fully expecting to not like it. But I judged it too harshly. 10 episodes in, I realized, uh-oh, I think I'm a fan of the show. It might have an ugly art style, but it has its own charm, and the animation itself is loose and dynamic and perfect for the tone the creators were going for. But if I wanted to make the characters in Superjail cuter, here's what I'd do. Let's start with Jackknife. Jackknife is not the main character, but every single episode begins with him committing a crime and getting arrested and taken to Superjail by the warden's robotic enforcer Jailbot. Jackknife is a hyperactive criminal and a huge pervert. I don't have a problem with his official design. He looks exactly like the dirtbag he is. My approach to Jackknife was to take his name a bit more literally. I made his hair more knife-like. I made his features a bit sharper, and I even had him holding a literal jackknife. I didn't change much because his character design is good. I used a softer pen tool in Procreate to do the outlines, and I color picked directly from the reference images of him. Basically what I did was draw him in my style. I think I made him about 10% cuter, which is just my natural artistic instinct. I kept a scruff in his tattoos, gave him both a cigarette and a bottle of booze, so he still looks stinky, but maybe a little less stinky than in the real show. Next we have Jared. Jared is the warden's assistant and the punching bag character of the show. He tries his best to do his job, but he's constantly being abused by his boss and coworkers. I feel really bad for him, but his character design makes it a lot easier to laugh at him, which is probably the point. So the obvious change to make was to reduce his enormous forehead. Another major change I made was to make his eyes really big to emphasize how stressed out he is and to garner a bit more sympathy from the viewer. I loosened his tie a bit to make him look slightly more disheveled, so he looks overworked and underappreciated. I also changed the color scheme of his clothes. I gave him a purple suit with a yellow shirt so he matched the warden better. I wanted to make it look like he was wearing a uniform, and of course I made sure to keep the pink from the warden's outfit off Jared so he looks less flashy. Next character I wanted to tackle was Alice, the sole prison guard of Superjail. She's also a trans woman. Now, I don't want to speak for a minority that I'm not a part of, and I don't want to accuse the creators of the show of malintent, but in my opinion, Alice's character design leans into some harmful stereotypes. She's brutish, she's got stubble and body hair, and there's a visible bulge in her miniskirt. There are a lot of jokes at her expense, concerning her lack of attractiveness.
You are different. You're a beautiful, strong woman.
Now, there's no shame in even a cis woman being big and muscular and hairy, to each their own, but I think to get away from the idea that all trans women are big, mannish brutes, I decided to soften her features a bit. I got rid of her stubble, smoothed out her skirt, just generally taking unnecessary details away. I also slimmed up her face a bit, but kept it more angular so she doesn't look too soft and feminine. After all, she is a violent prison guard. I kept her body shape the same because there's nothing inherently wrong with it, and it does fit her character. She's tough, strong, stoic, and she enjoys beating up inmates. I changed up her color scheme just a bit. Not only did I make her outfit color scheme match the warden, but I also made her glasses and scrunchie purple just so it contrasts better with her bright orange hair. I also got rid of her buck teeth. Alice's inclusion in the show isn't all bad. While I think her design is a little problematic, the show humanizes her by showing a flashback of her transition story, and it's also made clear that the warden is in love with her and thinks that she's beautiful, even though she clearly doesn't return his feelings. And speaking of the warden is my favorite character in the show, hands down. When I first decided to watch Superjail and I saw him in the Google results, I had a feeling that even if the show was bad, that at least this character would be fun. While I was wrong about me not liking the show, I was right that I'd like the warden. He's ridiculous, enthusiastic, sadistic, petulant, selfish, and he cares about giving his inmates a good time, even if his crazy schemes and contraptions end up killing most of them. I really like his voice, too.
Jailbot, what in the hell is that? It's grotesque.
Congratulations, sir.
Shut up, you idiot. Let's shake on it.
How juvenile. Sharice, we have work to do.
And I love his design. He's totally adorable. I like the gap in his teeth, his Willy Wonka-esque suit, his yellow glasses, and I love how he's animated like a rubber hose. Even though this is supposed to be a redesign video, I decided to just draw him in my style. I did think about adding more fancy detail to his suit, but then I decided I didn't want to overcomplicate it. He's perfect the way he is. I'm really happy I ended up liking Superjail. In fact, I watched through the entire show multiple times, which is not something I was able to do in my previous cartoon redesign video. Personally, an art style alone isn't enough to kill a show for me, even if it is a deterrent at first. And Superjail is not even that ugly. It's a fun show. It's over the top with violence and gore, it's got some off-color humor, but despite how ridiculous it is, I can tell a lot of effort went into the animation. Even the opening sequence where Jackknife is getting flown to Superjail by Jailbot, all the scenes he passes over are different in each episode. They didn't have to do that, but they did, and I appreciate the showrunners and the animators for it. There's also a variety of LGBTQIA+ characters in the show. There's Alice, of course, but there's also a rival prison to Superjail called Ultra Prison with all-female inmates that consists of gender-swapped versions of all the main characters, including a trans man prison guard who is the Ultra Prison counterpart to Alice. The mistress of Ultra Prison, the female counterpart to the warden, is bisexual, who's had relations with both the warden and Alice was so good in bed that the mistress transforms from a strict, domineering prison warden to a laid-back hippie. There's also a gay couple in Superjail, Paul and John, who appear in most of the episodes and get a whole episode dedicated to their wedding, which of course the warden ruins by butting in and trying to make it more extravagant, and the warden himself is confirmed by one of the show's creators to be a romantic asexual. So this show's got a little bit of everything, and I am happy that it exists. What a great way to start this project. Kingstar King is a putrid and relentlessly paced psychedelic trip that I couldn't wait to end. Despite its meager 6-episode length, this show was a chore to get through. It's just constant noise.
Shit-faced chicken cola! Wow, the kids, it's my favorite thing in the world!
And it's way uglier and more grotesque than Superjail. And I hate all the characters. They're all annoying and stupid. The premise of the show is that of a fantasy barbarian hero who gets transported to another dimension and has to work at a Waffle House as punishment for looking at Princess Snow White naked. And so it's Kingstar King's goal to be reunited with his ladylove and rescue her from whatever danger she falls into. However, after the pilot and the first episode, this premise is abandoned for random gross shenanigans. Then the show ends after 6 episodes, and it gets brought back for a Christmas special like 10 years later for some reason. There's a lot of missed potential here, not just in terms of the premise, but in the character designs as well. The interdimensional adventures of an exiled barbarian hero it should be fun, but this show is more interested in forcing me to watch nasty-ass characters shoot fluids out of every orifice and scream unfunny jokes at me. Just why? Why is everyone constantly leaking? Okay, so building off the premise established in the pilot, let's start with the main character, Kingstar King. He's a He-Man-inspired barbarian, a hypersexual hero who seems to get his power by drinking and snorting any substance he can get his hands on. For my redesign, I'm imagining what I'd do if I was making a show about a barbarian stuck working a fast food job. His design in the original show makes him look like a member of a motorcycle gang. For inspiration, I used references of He-Man and Conan the Barbarian, mostly to make his outfit look more barbarian-like, and also because he works in a Waffle House, I gave him an apron and a visor for a work uniform over his furry He-Man-like loincloth. To make him more handsome, I got rid of his mullet and I gave him a long, flowing head of hair. I made his face nice and chiseled without adding too many lines. And another thing that bothered me about his original design is the fact that Star isn't his name, and there are no stars on his design anywhere, and he's supposed to be a flashy, over-the-top space barbarian. So I stuck a star on his fast food visor. I gave him a Conan the Barbarian-styled necklace with a star pendant, and put stars on his boots. And because he's from another dimension, I made his pupils star-shaped. To round it all off, he's holding a nice hot waffle fresh from the press. At this point, he looks like a completely different character, but he fits the premise of the version of the show I wish existed. I also used red outlines instead of black ones just to make it more interesting for a show that's supposed to be a flashy interdimensional adventure. In true He-Man fashion, Kingstar King has a floating magician sidekick named Pooza, but unlike Orko, Pooza is a nasty little duck man who's constantly squirting green slime for some reason that I hope to never know. There's really not much to him other than him being repulsive and annoying. I of course drew some inspiration from Orko for my redesign. I gave Pooza long flowing wizard sleeves, which I think makes his silhouette more interesting than his dumb little stick arms in the original design. To make him cuter, I referenced a rubber duck so he could have a small rounded bill and big eyes. In the original design, he's got this light bulb on his head, and it's unclear whether or not it's under or in front of his hat. I actually kind of like it, so I kept it. And I like his little logo on the front of his robe, so I kept that as well. I also had the idea of his irises being light bulbs as well, and the whites of his eyes being black. I think it makes him look a bit mysterious while keeping him cute. He might look closer to an Orko ripoff than before, but I think at the very least he looks a lot less nasty. And no more leaking green slime for him. Hank Waffles is the reluctant one of the group. He used to be a rather ugly human before dying and having his soul transferred into the body of his Waffle House's slightly less ugly mascot. Hank cares more about his business than interdimensional adventures.
No, never again. I just want to be a regular slime ball. I hate all of you.
I think most of his design is fine for what it is. He does look like a mascot, but there are a couple of things that bother me. His long blue nose and his black teeth. I'm not sure why those details are necessary or how they would even make sense, and the colors on his uniform are hideous. For Hank's redesign, I wanted to invoke the look and taste of Waffles, and since he's a mascot, I immediately thought of pushing his design in the direction of an old-fashioned rubber hose cartoon. So I made his eyes bigger and gave them the pie slice irises that those old cartoons had. I generally made his shape language a bit more rounded on the ends, so he looks like he would be a cute and happy mascot if he smiled. But of course, since he's an uptight wet blanket, I made sure to give him a pout. I got rid of his blue nose and green lips and made his waffle head a nice waffle color. I changed the dollop of butter on his head to look more melty. I also gave him the same colors I put on Kingstar King's Waffle House apron. I also gave him brown shoes and pants, which contrasted with the blue and yellow of his jacket and shirt to make him look more retro. He still looks like a stinker, but he's definitely much cuter now. And if he were to smile, he'd have white teeth instead of black. So even though she gets dropped after episode 1, I wanted to draw Snow White because she looks like every single female character in the show. They are all drawn exactly the same. It would be one thing if her massive rack was a gag specific to her, but when all the ladies in the show are endowed with breasts bigger than their heads, it's not funny. It stinks of immaturity and the inability to see women as anything other than sex objects. Now, I'm not here to take away the sexy ladies, I just want more female characters with the same dignity as the male characters. So for starters, I'm reducing those triple Fs down to double Ds. I reference the Barbarian Queen for her outfit, which not only makes her look like she belongs in the same universe as my redesign of Kingstar King, but it's also sexy. Snow White's role in the original show is to be a damsel in distress. And as played out as that character archetype is, it can work if the character still has agency and a personality, or if it's funny. But then I started thinking, what if instead of her being kidnapped by villains all the time, she keeps getting thrown in prison because she's a dangerous criminal? Then the show could make jokes about Kingstar King being a well-meaning dummy who thinks he's rescuing her when he's actually helping her break out of prison. This requires a complete overhaul of her design and personality, which I'm fine with. The original show didn't do anything to endear me to this character, and I have a feeling she wasn't intended to be anything more than a walking sexy lamp. Another thing that confuses me is the fact that Snow White in the show doesn't seem to be related to the Snow White of the fairy tale at all, so I have no idea why she's named that. And since she's not the Snow White from the fairy tale, I'm not going to give her the black hair, red lips, and all that stuff. I decided to take her name literally and give her a cool color scheme and platinum blonde hair, with some fur trim and icicles on the front of her jumpsuit, as well as icicle earrings. Of all the Kingstar King characters I redesigned, Snow White is the most drastic transformation, but it's a vast improvement over a walking pair of boobs. As it is, the show is just obnoxious and stupid and gross. And if it had gone on longer than 6 episodes, I have no idea what they could have done with the characters that wasn't just more of the same annoying garbage. There's no room for the characters to grow, there's no story to develop, and there's nothing about the humor that makes me want to come back for more. In my research of the show, I saw it described by the creators as He-Man on drugs, and yeah, That's what it is, but there's nothing clever about it. It doesn't work as a parody of He-Man or of the 80s barbarian movie genre because the show's so busy with juvenile gross-out gags and sex jokes that it forgets its own premise after the first 2 episodes. Now, I actually watched the special episode that aired in 2023, almost 10 years after its original run. It has a different art style, still ugly, but it's different, and it actually had a plot that feels relevant to the premise. Kingstar King has gone to the regular world and has started a regular loving family that has no idea that he's an intergalactic warrior, and he's now a balding middle-aged man. I guess the point of the episode is that Kingstar King only came to our world to get a job at Amazon and get close to Jeff Bezos so he could steal one of his kidneys to give to the Waffle House as an ingredient for their waffles. Don't ask. And yet Kingstar King ended up saving his regular family from Jeff Bezos by exploding his head, which was nice. I did like that. I also kind of liked the fact that he fell in love with an ordinary woman and created a family with her that he genuinely loves. I guess it shows character growth, and he moves his regular family to the same dimension as the Waffle House, so his biological family and found quote-unquote family of Hank Waffles, Pooza, and Goebbels can come together. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Goebbels before because there's not much to him other than being a dumb, gluttonous animal. I didn't do a separate character portrait for him, but I did draw him on my Kingstar King poster. He's the orange robot bear, because in the pilot, Kingstar King says Goebbels is his flying robot bear. And as you can see, his original design looks nothing like one. I mean, his face is on his crotch, and he looks like he has sheep's wool or something. I featured all the other characters I redesigned on the poster, including Snow White, who looks a bit menacing, but I really like the idea of her being a morally ambiguous character who uses Kingstar King's naive heroism to her advantage. And if I were writing the show, she'd gradually start falling for Kingstar King while also reforming her criminal ways. Obviously, that's just what I would do if I was making the show, and I have no power to change it. And it seems to be over anyway, so who cares? They had something going with the 2023 special, but it feels like too little too late. It still looked pretty ugly, and I didn't connect with the characters in the previous 7 episodes, so the sentimentality in the special didn't do anything to make me start liking them, but it's okay. I don't ever have to watch it again. The Nutshack is a Filipino-American cartoon whose legacy consists only of now-dead memes. It's known as one of the worst cartoons ever made, and you don't need to watch it to see why. However, I wanted to do proper research, so I tried watching it, and I could only handle 2.5 episodes before giving up. It's juvenile, racist, horny, and ultimately pointless. I don't know, maybe there's more character development later in the show, maybe there are jokes that are actually funny. I'm simply not interested in finding out. I'm also uninterested in diving deeper into the characters individually. Instead, I'm going to take this lineup of the Nutshack characters and draw them all in a less unappealing style. What I really don't like about the show's art style is the grotesque hands. A lot of cartoons will often only draw 4 fingers on their characters because it's easier to animate, but the Nutshack hands are bulbous, overly detailed, and have these creepy white nails, so the 4 fingers makes them look even more nasty. I also didn't like the line work. While I appreciate the varying line weights, they still feel stiff and don't look any less stiff in motion. That said, low quality animation doesn't make or break a show for me. I mean, I like Aqua Teen Hunger Force. As long as the show is funny, or if it tells a compelling story, or even just has characters that I like, I can forgive how it looks. That said, I disliked everything in the Nutshack, so its ugly style was the smelly icing on the stink cake. It mostly consists of annoying voices, juvenile sex jokes, and nothing in the 2.5 episodes I watched had any interesting character development. The premise is that Jack, a guy from the Philippines, moves into his cousin Phil and Uncle Tito Dick's apartment in the United States. Yes, his name is Tito Dick, and it's very funny. So the show could be a humorous examination of culture shock, but instead it's about, well, the pilot episode is just Phil showing Jack around and introducing him to the annoying stereotypes that live in their urban neighborhood. Episode 1 is about Phil, Jack, and their friend Cheetah going on a skiing trip and Phil getting tricked into being in a gay porno. And Cheetah almost makes out with Jack but discovers he has a third nipple, but it turns out it's not an actual third nipple, it's a piece of chocolate. And the half episode I watched was a Halloween episode where the gang thinks that Jack has become a serial killer, but it's probably just somebody who looks and sounds like him. I don't know how it ends and I don't really care. Let me read some episode synopses because I don't want to watch it anymore. Episode 4, Got Surgery. When the gang agrees to get plastic surgery at the mall, Cheetah doesn't approve, but then they learn that she got a boob job. Episode 5, Duck Karma. An elderly woman rides around town selling ballot? I don't know what that is. And Phil hates it. 2 ducks swoop duck and 2 quack fly around and defecate on everybody. Episode 7, 420. When the world runs out of weed, the gang sets out to find the holy grail of weed, which is said to be a legend. However, Bob Saget stops them on the way. Episode 13, The Chode Warrior. Phil must train his penis with the help of a living barrel man in order to take on Jean-Claude Van Damme in a deadly battle to the finish. So I hope you can understand me not wanting to watch the whole show. Ugh. It's hard for me to find a good reason for the Nutshack's existence. It's just more of the same garbage as any other terrible adult cartoon. Just make a bunch of crude jokes at the expense of several different minority groups. Haha, sex, masturbation, wow, lady have big boobs. I'm not gay. It's also outdated and crass and just not fun to watch. In my redesigns of every single character in this lineup, I basically just adjusted the proportions of the hands and feet, I smoothed out some of the details, gave the characters bigger, cuter eyes, and I brightened up the colors because the original show's color palette is very muddy. I pushed the characters' skin colors towards a warmer orange tone. Another thing I noticed about the characters in the original lineup is that they all lean to one side slightly, which makes them look like they're going to fall over. So I made sure to stand them up straight. Art tip. Flip your drawing on its y-axis to make sure your character doesn't look crooked, and make sure you're doing that in the sketching stage so it's easier to fix. In a weird way, I did actually enjoy redrawing every single character in the lineup. I actually like how they look now, and I'd rather watch a show with these guys rather than these guys. The Nutshack is ugly and unfunny, but it is a meme 10 years dead at this point. It's not worth getting mad about. If I wanted to be really uncharitable, I'd call Bad Exorcist the Polish South Park, and that's not entirely accurate. While elements of its art style and its animation are very reminiscent of South Park, it's not the same kind of show at all. It might have gross-out humor, sex humor, and pop culture references, but Bad Exorcist is about a couple of guys and their demon buddy who hunt demons that come to Earth, and it's way uglier than South Park. Much like the Nutshack, I could not watch past the few episodes that I picked out. I jumped around the first season a bit and even tried selecting ones that I thought might be fun or might delve deeper into the inner world of the characters based on their episode descriptions, but I shouldn't have expected this show to be even a little deep. It's a gross, ugly demon hunting show, and that's it. It features some of the worst art I've ever seen. Hell, I'd say it looks worse than the Nutshack. This looks like it was made by a group of 12-year-olds and posted to old school YouTube. The line work, like a lot of the ugly shows I've seen, is just unnecessarily detailed to make the characters look more grotesque. The wrinkles on the characters' clothes don't make any sense at all. And I don't like the demon designs. I find them to be unoriginal and uninspired, but we'll get to that later. First, I have to redesign the main character, Bogdan Boner. I don't have a problem with his design, just how it's drawn. So I did what I always do, vary the line weight. I used dark blue lines because I think colored line art is a bit underutilized in cartoons. It looks more interesting than standard black lines. I pulled back detail from his face but kept lines under his eyes and above his brows to show that he's middle-aged. I also drew lines all along his jaw and chin to suggest scruff. I kept Bogdan's clothes mostly the same, but I actually drew his shoes. If you look at his original design closely, you can see they just used flat JPEGs of cowboy boots instead of drawing them on him. I don't know why they did this, and I don't want to make any assumptions. Shoes are hard to draw, but I don't know, you can at least try. Or you can take a page out of South Park and just use simple, flat, elongated shapes, but in keeping the art style consistent, I drew them like I drew the rest of the character. I also gave him a shotgun. To visually differentiate it from his dark leather jacket, I made it a brownish color with gold accents that matched the gold of his belt buckle and his crucifix. I think it also makes the gun look more special, like it's Bogdan's demon-killing gun that's loaded with silver bullets full of holy water or something. Next is Marcin. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. He's Bogdan's assistant demon hunter. I had trouble pinning down his personality since I didn't watch that much of the show, but the sense I got was that he's almost like a Jesse Pinkman to Bogdan's Walter White, though neither of these characters are nearly as interesting. He mostly just carries out Bogdan's plans while complaining that Bogdan doesn't pay him enough for his work. Marcin just strikes me as a younger guy who's loyal to his mentor figure even though he's underpaid, because he enjoys the demon hunting business. In the first episode, he says that he's 19, which I wouldn't have guessed if he hadn't told me. So in my redesign, I gave him big eyes to make him look young and like he's eager to learn how to be a better hunter. I smoothed out his face and got rid of those strong ridges above and below his eyes. I almost forgot his sparse teenage mustache, but I added it on him right at the end, as you'll see. He has a scar on his face, which he explains was from a tractor accident in his childhood, so I included that detail. I think it makes him look more interesting and could serve as characterization. Like, he's still young, but he's been through some stuff. To contrast Bogdan's darker colors, I gave Marcin a lighter palette. I think it also contributes to the characterization that he's not as jaded as Bogdan is, at least not yet. And I had him holding a baseball bat, which he does use as a weapon in at least one of the episodes I watched. I had some black blood dripping off it to imply he's used it recently to kill a demon. Demon blood in the show is just red, but I think black blood would be cooler. I also added some armbands and rolled up his sleeves to make him look eager to work. I also added a crucifix around his neck. I made it silver to contrast it with Bogdan's gold one, to show that he's of a lower rank than him when it comes to demon hunting. Now the real challenge was to redesign the demon characters from Bad Exorcist. I started with Domino, the demon that has teamed up with Bogdan and Marcin to hunt demons. I'm not sure if the show ever examines his motivations for fighting against his own kind, but I don't care enough to find out. In the episodes I watched, he doesn't seem to struggle with the fact that he's killing other demons. In fact, he seems to be the most cheerful and laid-back character of the main cast. What I do care about is how generic of a demon design he is. Whenever people picture demons without thinking too hard about it, they usually picture red guys with cloven hooves and horns and a whip-like tail. I, for one, wanted to look beyond this cliche and tried to come up with a design that reflected traits of animals that people find terrifying. After some experimentation, I ended up looking at wasps for the main inspiration. Their long limbs and segmented body are unsettling, but that's exactly what I was looking for in a demon design. I kept the horns to make it more clear that he's a demon and not just some bug man. I also added more spikes around his shoulders and on his arms and legs to make him look a bit more dangerous. I also put wasp wings to add interest to his silhouette. One aspect in the original design I alluded to was this weird joint in Domino's neck. I took from it that Domino has bad posture, so I positioned him in a slouch. And despite the fact that I wanted him to look intimidating, I also wanted to keep him looking friendly and laid back. The hunched posture helps, and I gave him a little smile and big alien-like eyes. I tried coloring him red, but it was clashing with the blue outlines, and it was making my eyes hurt. So I ended up with a medium gray blue, and I added lighter blue stripes to add interest. I think the cooler, less saturated coloring also helped lessen his menace. I'm not the best at monster designs, but considering that, I think he turned out pretty decent. He looks friendly enough, and I can also see him getting scarier during a demon fight. Lastly, I wanted to tackle the King of Hell, Beelzebub. What a clever and hilarious name. Beelzebub is the main antagonist of the show and Bogdan's main enemy. Just like Domino, his character design is too generic. In fact, he looks way too similar to South Park's Satan design, and that's all I could think about whenever he was on screen. So I know the name Beelzebub has something to do with flies, but I wanted to draw Beelzebub as a beetle. I think it fits his body shape and it would allow me to give him more horns on his head. I wanted his horns to be reminiscent of a crown, since he is a king. I made him big and buff and added other spikes to his design to make him look more intimidating. I used dark red outlines to contrast him with the main characters, and so I could also make him all red, which would have made my eyes bleed again if the line art was blue. It makes him look angry and menacing. I also added stripes to him like I did to Domino, not only to add interest, but also to allude to the fact that Beelzebub and Domino both come from the same place. I kept his loincloth from the original design, but I made it darker to contrast with his bright red skin, and he's got a shell on his back where his wings would be like a beetle. You can't see it in this character portrait, but you will see it on the poster I draw next. Bad Exorcist did one thing for me. It taught me that bad, ugly, crass adult shows are not exclusive to America. I wonder how popular this is in Poland. Regardless, I didn't like it at all, and I abandoned it pretty quickly. If the action scenes were any good, if the characters were likable, if there was any reason to keep watching, I would have. But as it is, Bad Exorcist looks awful and offers nothing for me. If you're an edgy 12-year-old in Poland, maybe it's the funniest show you've ever seen. But I'm not Polish, and I have no idea what their sense of humor is like over there. And I have no idea how this even made it onto Netflix when it looks the way that it does. This is probably the ugliest adult cartoon I've ever seen, unless I find something that's somehow even worse. So, there you have it. I've completely robbed these 4 shows of their individual styles and made them cuter. Like I said in the beginning, adult cartoons don't have to be ugly. I've watched and enjoyed quite a few that look great, that are funny, and that made me care about the characters. And a show that's funny and well written doesn't need to look good to be good. Making an animated show of any caliber is difficult and takes a long time, so I tried to be nice. I gave each of these shows a chance, and one good thing did come out of this project. I found Superjail. Thanks for watching.